You're watching Ramping Up Your English. This is segment 3. This is episode 69. Today we're focusing on wildlife refuges. In this episode, you've seen part 1 of a video on wildlife refuges. How much of this part did you understand? From time to time, it's important to chart your growth in listening comprehension. This episode is a good time to do that. Over time, I think you'll see that percentage going up, especially near the end of the unit. We'll show part 2 of the video on wildlife refuges soon. Be sure to note your percentage of comprehension with that part as well. Now that you know you'll record your comprehension, it'll be interesting to see if there's a difference between the two parts. Keep this information in your notebook for future reference. This is also where you could be keeping notes and writing your animal report. Now, let's learn more about special places for wildlife. In addition to the wildlife refuge system, other areas provide a haven for animals. The Elkhorn Slough National Estuarine Research Reserve provides field laboratories for scientific research and education about estuaries. Elkhorn Slough also provides essential habitat for over 700 species. Some endangered species live here. Wildlife recovery efforts can be seen with the return of the sea otters. Elkhorn Slough is their main refuge. Sea otters had almost disappeared due to hunting for their soft, thick fur. At Elkhorn Slough, scientists can observe wildlife in a healthy ecosystem. Parts of this reserve were bought up piece by piece at a time by the Nature Conservancy. This otter seems right at home among these harbor seals. While preserving this special area began with the Nature Conservancy, management of the area is provided by the Elkhorn Slough Foundation. The foundation owns some of the land here. They welcome visitors to explore the slough and learn about this natural treasure. The Elkhorn Slough Foundation has a visitor center from which visitors can easily enjoy the view of wildlife and the beauty of the surrounding area. Here we saw terns diving high speed into the water. Observation is a great way to learn about nature. While we thrilled at seeing a handful of pelicans during our spring trip, our guide told us that thousands of pelicans make Elkhorn Slough their home during the winter. Observation wasn't only with our eyes. We could hear and smell this haul out of California sea lions. Given this refuge, the wildlife at Elkhorn Slough have open access to and from the Pacific Ocean. License plates in Louisiana used to carry the words "Sportsman's Paradise," referring to all the opportunities to hunt and fish. Cameron Prairie National Wildlife Refuge is one of several refuges in the coastal marsh. It shares administration with several others, offering this visitor center. There are many animals of the marsh here, including Louisiana's official reptile, the American alligator. Now, when it comes to gators, the rule is look, but don't feed. That rule applies to the largest national refuge in Louisiana, the Sabine National Wildlife Refuge. Louisiana's Great Salt Marshes supports a burgeoning number of wildlife. That wildlife finds refuge and protection in a number of refuges, including the Sabine National Refuge in Cameron Parish. I took my wife and father-in-law to this nature trail in the Sabine Refuge, a chance to show off the rich wildlife in my native state. The only thing that's not flat in this marsh is this observation deck in the distance. My father-in-law had walked enough, but Liz continued for the promise of an elevated view. You can see that we're dressed for chilly weather. I was hoping that discomfort wouldn't keep the wildlife away. Among other animals here, I was hoping to spot an alligator. From this vantage point, we enjoyed a sweeping view of the salt marsh that makes up the Sabine National Refuge. Now, if we couldn't see an alligator, I was hoping we'd at least see a roseate spoonbill, the bird featured on their website. We did spot the kind of hole in the mud where alligators burrow in when the weather gets too cold. I should explain that Liz did not share my goal of seeing an alligator. All we needed to do was look up. We seemed to be greeted by a flyover by this group of pelicans. I jokingly call them the Louisiana Air Force. Louisiana's state bird is the pelican, but it's the brown pelican that's a state bird. These are white pelicans, the same species we see when canoeing at Upper Klamath Wildlife Refuge in Oregon. Since Klamath Lake sometimes freezes over in winter, these could be visitors from Oregon, like us. Maybe they were here to greet us. Looking down at the marsh also rewarded us with the sight of a majestic bird. Now, this was no roseate spoonbill, but it's one of those great birds that were hunted almost to extinction for their feathers. It's because of that ridiculous practice that it's against the law to possess feathers from a wild bird. These are wading birds. In flight, you can see the long legs ending in those feet well behind the tail. This is no roseate spoonbill, but it is a glorious sight flying over the marsh. Far in the distance, we spotted these white pelicans. They look as though they're plotting some kind of a conspiracy, or perhaps they're gossiping about these Oregonians who followed them 2,000 miles to Louisiana. We saw signs of lesser birds in the refuge. These hanging basket nests are typical of blackbirds, but other species make them as well. I'm sure it was the larger birds that inspired the creation of the Sabine National Wildlife Refuge, like this great blue heron. Look at those long, stilty legs. Herons are usually seen fishing alone. Night herons are also solitary, waiting patiently on a stream bank like this one. Patience is also needed by this lone human fishing in Calcasieu Lake. The Sabine is the largest coastal marsh refuge on the U.S. Gulf Coast. Over 200 species of birds spend their time here. One species is the roseate spoonbill, a bird I wanted to see during my visit. The bird I was most likely to see here is a duck. Here along the wetland waterway, I saw ducks in small groups. I kept my eyes open for alligators. I'm told there's a great number of them here. These ducks share this wetland with American mink, muskrat, river otters, and turtles. Blue crabs, too, but this isn't where people catch them. As if checking on us Oregonians, the white pelicans returned for another flyover. Pointing it in the distance, a huge flock appeared. I had trouble deciding whether to point down or up. I'm no expert in identifying birds, but I can sometimes name the species of common birds. I was stumped by this one. The short, thin beak and long V-shaped wings were not familiar to me. A challenge like this is a good reason to visit a wildlife refuge. Most national wildlife refuges welcome visitors, and some permit hunting and fishing if that keeps things in balance. While we didn't see any alligators, much to the relief of my wife, I did see a pink dot in the sky. Could this be the spoonbill that had eluded me? From this distance, it's hard to see the spoon-shaped tip of its bill. As it banks in flight, I see enough to know that this is the bird I was hoping to see here. I wasn't alone in the excitement. Like birds, people flock to the national wildlife refuges like the Sabine. It's a great deal for the wildlife and the people who admire it. I want to thank my director, Denise Ross, the RVTV staff, and my talented and loyal crew. And I want to thank you, our viewers. All of you helped to make this program an award winner. Join us next time for Ramping Up Your English. I'm John Letts.